Myth, scripts, and realities for women as they grow older. While societies have created space for older men, often seeing them as distinguished, wise, senior statesmen, and more business tycoons, society has created a very different perspective for women as they age. Through the lens of ageism, women are often dismissed, negative images are portrayed, they're bitter, they're neutered, they're asexual, or they're completely invisible. There are many myths for older women that society creates. Let's look at a few. There's the myth of inactivity. And this stereotype says that older women want to slow down and withdraw from the world. They want to retire to a quiet place where they can pursue their hobbies and age gracefully. The truth is that older women today have more resources that empower them than any generation before them for millennia. This myth holds that older women are not interested in building new relationships. They are happy with the memories of days past. Yet many women over 60 having experienced divorce, separation, and loss of a partner. So the myth of solitude says that after such a loss, women should just curl up with their pets and live a life of quiet seclusion, not interfering of the world of the young. By accepting this myth, women are weak and happier on their own, and women are holding themselves back. There's the myth of intimacy and love. Many believe the myth that women in their 60s no longer have a need or desire for intimacy. And yet research shows us that most women remain sexual. Having spent decades practicing, they know what they want. The number one reason an older person doesn't have sex is not because they're old or unattractive. It's because they're too unhealthy to have sex. Another myth is that getting older is synonymous with mental decline. And this is another self-fulfilling prophecy of sorts. If women believe that they will get weaker and more forgetful over time, they may stop doing exactly the things that will keep them healthy and mentally healthy. Societally, there's also belief that women have no value and no ability to contribute. And yet, according to the prevailing wisdom, older women are out of touch with modern issues and they don't have the ability to innovate. Nothing could be farther from the truth. But older women are not all Disney villains and sweet old grandmas that cook for you. Sociologists and TED Talkers might want to tell us how females of each generation are bucking norms and conventions about what it means to be a woman in her 30s now or the 60s or beyond. But what do women actually think about being the age that they are? Do they embrace it? Do they fake it? Do they hide it? What does age appropriate even mean anymore? A groundbreaking study by AARP to discover what 2,000 women from 21 to 72 really felt about their age came out recently. Women were asked a variety of things, from their skincare routines to their body image to their biggest fears of growing older. And what became immediately clear is that the average woman's attitude about her number are far more nuanced than what we expected. While our culture tends to make sweeping black and white pronouncements, boomer women feel sexually invisible, millennials are selfie-obsessed and whittling away their self-esteem, and Gen Xers just don't exist. Our understanding of women's relationship with aging is largely gray. So what did the study show us? Women of all ages, especially boomers and Gen Xers, are less likely to worry about growing older than over how infrequently they see women who are looking like them or, reality, not looking like them in culture. 61% of women claim they don't feel represented by images of women in media. About 3/4 of them appreciate advertisements that celebrate all ages and wish they saw more realistic images of women in magazines and social media feeds. They also say that when there is representation of women of all ages, women are looking at images that don't quite reflect who they are. Half of all women admit to being annoyed by airbrushed images on magazine covers. Of all groups, millennial women are more likely to get a self-esteem boost from filtered images of themselves and from scoring likes on social media. Only 17% of women from this study hesitate when asked their age. Less than a third of women from their 20s to their 80s consider age itself the defining factor in their lives. There's less emotional weight in revealing that number since women in general are taking better care of themselves holistically. Across generations, these women regularly work out, eat fruits and vegetables on a daily basis, and get annual medical exams. From a purely physical standpoint, nearly as many Gen Xers and millennials rock miniskirts. Boomers, however, who have been there before us, said 72% of them claim that they can feel free to dress however they want. While some generations gaps do exist, millennials, Gen Xers, and boomers were more alike than not alike. Overall, women believe in the idea of healthy aging. 64% of millennials and Gen Xers said so, and 75% of boomers did. Harvard researchers have also found that people who feel old tend to grow old faster. And Yale University research echoes that, suggesting that people who think aging means declining tend to develop cardiovascular and memory problems. Perhaps this explains why, instead of being tethered to one generational bucket, some sociologists have coined a new term: perennials, a more aspirational descriptor that suggests, like the namesake blooms, women can thrive for many years to come, a concept we can all get behind. And while Western culture has created an environment where older women are invisible or negatively looked at, Aboriginal culture is based on respect for the land and for their elders. Not showing respect is one of the biggest mistakes non-Aboriginal people do when interacting with Aboriginal culture. And Aboriginal culture in Australia has a tradition of respecting the advice and the importance of older women. In current times in Western culture, menopause is considered a defining feature of a woman growing older. And yet, not unlike PMS, there is a lot of mythology around menopause. In the additional video, I want you to take a look at what menopause is and is not. What we do know is that it is not the same for all women. It is not hot flashes and mood changes and you'd better run away and lock up and hide until she's done. Women experience menopause in very different ways, and in fact, their understandings and personal beliefs about aging often contribute to the way they experience and express menopause. The concept of menopause is not new to Japanese women. Chi no Michi, or Path of Blood, which has been a part of Japanese vernacular since 1362 AD, but has fallen into disuse in the last century. Chi no Michi refers to the decline of tenki, a quality that intimately associates the female reproductive cycle and the collection of stale blood, which causes numerous nonspecific symptoms, many of which are similar to konenkai. There's a huge difference between the American treatment of menopause and the Japanese, once again demonstrating both culture and gender differences in East and West. Japanese medical textbooks use the term hikai for the end of menstruation, which is probably the closest to the current meaning of menopause in English. But this term is not well understood by Japanese women, and doctors refer to the term konenkai, which, when conversing with their patients, menopause was understood as part of a larger process. Konenkai has slightly different symptoms. Konenkai is a more holistic approach to the female aging process and can be tied loosely to how different cultures, especially females, view medicinal treatments in the process of aging. Hormone-based medicine is a chief concern for Japanese women, which is another significant difference. They fear the side effects, namely cancer, and thus chose to participate in konenkai in a more natural approach. The definition put forth by Margaret Locke states, konenkai, the change of life, the critical age, the menopause. This definition leaves room for much interpretation, both from the perspective of the woman experiencing it and the gynecologist. Locke's interviews with middle-aged Japanese women were the vast spectrum of responses given when the explanation of the concept of konenkai. Some women believe that you can, quote, reach the end of menstruation without having konenkai, while others believe that konenkai is closely tied, if not defined by, the end of menstruation. So how should women look at menopause? First, it's important to know that menopause is merely the end of menstruation. It's not a disease of estrogen efficiency. It's not a symbol of aging. It is a symbol of a transition in life. What else does it mean? So let's look at climacteric. This word comes from the Greek word climacter, meaning critical period, and has been used for centuries to refer to the period of change during life, and that means the lives of both women and men. It is only in the last 100 years or so that the term has been used to refer to the time around the end of menstruation in a woman's midlife. The idea that men might also have critical phases in their lives seems to have fallen by the wayside. And yet we do know that men's decline of their main hormone, testosterone, begins its slow and steady and consistent decline from the age of 40 or so. So there are a lot of ideas in history and around the world that the human lifespan can be divided into key life stages. Perhaps the most well-known is Shakespeare's 7 Ages of Man from the play As You Like It. In this view, a man's life, note, not a woman's life, is divided into these stages: infant, schoolboy, lover, soldier, justice, aging fool, and second childhood when he loses all his faculties. It's important to understand that there are new roles and relationships that can come to women as they age. One concept is the empty nest syndrome. This idea that a woman has been a mother bird with her nest tending her little ones, and they've now left. And for women who have focused their lives more exclusively on raising children, finding a new identity becomes very important to them. This is a stage when they may lose a life partner, and the challenges for many women for a very long time who had female partners and the lack of support that often came from society. For women in heterosexual relationships, studies show that more often than not, it is a rebirth of life for them, a different change, an opportunity to become something more than they were before. Their career changes, there's retirement. Knowing and understanding that women make so much less than men do for the same work speaks to the financial considerations that affect women experiencing aging. What can be done about this? How do we create societal systems where women, because they are retiring, aren't thrust into poverty in much greater numbers than men are? And as the AARP study showed with Harvard and others, that it is important and it is a time that while women are rejecting this message of decline, so society should. So could these negative stereotypes of older women be changing as our population ages? All around the world, people are living longer, and larger percentages of our population are growing older. Have you seen any evidence of this? Have you seen any change in your lifetime? Do you think that advertisers are promoting images of strong older women more than they used to? And what can you do, and what can I do, and what can we do to make those changes a reality?